In the aftermath of the assassination of Charlie Kirk that took place 2 days ago, an assassination that is disgusting and depraved and appalling and representative of so much of what is wrong with the United States, it's important to contextualize this. And this doesn't mean that the shooter is not to blame for what he did, but we have to contextualize the environment of political violence that exists in this country. Political violence in the United States didn't just happen. It didn't just, oh, we have no political violence. Now we have political violence. It's been fed and it's been normalized. And in some cases, it's even been celebrated. And one of the biggest agitators of that has been Donald Trump. The reason that political violence is now a part of American life to a degree is because of Trump and MAGA's agitation. And Charlie Kirk's killing, which you don't have to like what he stood for. You don't have to feel, you don't even have to feel empathy for Kirk if you don't. Because some people wrote to me, they said, David, I'm having trouble feeling empathy for Kirk. You don't have to feel that to recognize that we're never going to get closer to a better country with political assassinations, and political violence is just not going to happen. And so Charlie Kirk's assassination is kind of the latest in a grim series of these killings. And he was on stage answering a question about gun violence when the shot rang out. And within minutes, crystal clear video is circulating. Less than 2 hours later, Trump's on social media. He's saying Kirk's a martyr for truth and freedom, and radical leftists must be blamed for terrorism. There was no pause. There were no facts. It was just partisan blame from Donald Trump. And this came from a guy who's been shot at twice in the last year. I guess the one on the golf course didn't get anywhere near him, or maybe a shot didn't even ring out at the second one, but he was shot at least once, and we know that he barely survived that one. You would think that surviving would make him a really loud voice against this sort of incitement, no matter who the target is. But Trump's kind of doubling down. He still laces his speeches with violent language. We still see the loathing of political opponents in public that's extraordinarily performative. He incited January 6th, obviously. And so the truth is, political violence has not been totally partisan in its targets, but it's been overwhelmingly from the right. We went over the data yesterday. And one of the things that unfortunately is happening is that under MAGA, when violence hits Republicans, it's time for a national mourning period. Trump ordering all federal flags flown at half-mast, and the New York Yankees had a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk. And when it hits Democrats, you see indifference or mockery. I mean, just remember when Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, was attacked, even Charlie Kirk joked about it. Trump has joked about it many times. And so you have to evaluate in the broader context of this political violence, the selective outrage from Trump's base. They know who do we value and who don't we value, whose deaths are politically useful and whose deaths do we want to downplay or avoid. And this is bigger than Trump. It's not just Trump. Mainstream outlets, even supposedly left-wing ones, are framing Charlie Kirk as a respected debater and family man. And, they ignore the extremism and the bigotry and his role in pushing lies about January 6th and other things. None of that means he deserved to get shot. Disgusting what took place. But you see them dehumanize Democratic victims, Paul Pelosi, people like George Floyd. And they call this, some people had political disagreements with Charlie Kirk, as if it's just a disagreement over tax rates, for example. And the hypocrisy is really, really sharp. Now, there is also the impossible to ignore reality that the America in which Charlie Kirk was killed is an America that is a lot like the one he idolized, right? An America where he said it's worth, unfortunately, we're going to have the cost of some gun deaths so we can have the Second Amendment. That's what we have. And he was the cost. Now, as I said yesterday, if you had told him when he said that, Charlie, you will be the cost on September 10th, 2025, is that worth it? I don't know what he would have said, but we can't ignore that reality. The policies that he lived by to a degree and the rhetoric that he espoused were part of the environment in which this terrible tragedy took place. And a lot of his supporters are now demanding sympathy from everybody, even though they didn't show it for murdered school children or Nancy Pelosi's husband or, to victims of police violence or whatever the case may be. Elon Musk immediately branded the left the party of murderers before we knew anything about what took place. Trump followed the same playbook. It's a playbook of weaponization at the end of the day. And this is an authoritarian propaganda tactic that we see used a lot. You seize a tragedy, you create an enemy, and you keep the temperature boiling rather than reducing it and saying, I don't care who's getting killed or who's doing the killing. It's all bad, and it will never get us closer to a better country. So this scaffolding, this climate that makes political violence feel like an option has been built in plain sight. And Trump thrives in an America where you dehumanize your enemies, you kind of wink, wink, we're against violence, kind of, right? But rough them up and don't treat the protesters too kindly and all of this stuff. And bloodshed is just used to prove that the other side is evil. So if you spend years pouring gasoline on the fire and then pretend you have nothing to do with the fire, you are going to be in a position much like what Donald Trump is in right now. You build a politics around cruelty and blood sacrifice, and then all of a sudden there's blood. And it's tragic and it's disgusting. And we need to reinvent the political climate in this country. But to do that, we have to figure out who built the climate and got it to where it is. And Trump is absolutely one of those guys. Donald Trump has already packed his second-term cabinet with loyalists. He's threatened deportation as political punishment. He's expanded executive authority in ways we have not seen in modern history. These are real changes that are happening right now. And what's even more alarming is that a lot of the media is either glossing over the worst of it or they're reframing it so it all sounds a little more palatable. And that is why I use Ground News. This is a news comparison tool. Doesn't just feed you headlines. It shows you here's how different outlets, left, right, center, are covering the same story. And this is one of the few tools I know of that can really help you detect the political spin, the bias, catch stories that your usual sources might downplay or not cover at all on everything from immigration policy to economic shifts. If you want to get a bigger picture, a broader picture of what's being reported, Ground News is an invaluable source to keep you informed. And Ground News is offering my audience 40% off their top tier Vantage plan. You'll only pay $5 a month. Go to ground.news/Pakman or enter the code Pakman in the app to get started. The link is in the description.